Hey everyone, FishyWizard5 here, and I'm going to be giving my full, unfiltered, unbiased review of the Brighter Shores Early Access release. Now before we begin, I want to address the elephant in the room and say that Brighter Shores is not RuneScape. This game has made it very clear that it's not trying to be a reskin of RuneScape. It's trying to be its own game, a fresh take on the MMO genre, as you will. However, I don't think it's unreasonable to say that this game is lacking elements that made RuneScape very successful back in the day, and think that those same elements in RuneScape would also make Brighter Shores a massively successful game, as successful or even more successful as RuneScape. So if you hear me mentioning RuneScape a lot in this video, that's the reason why. And without further ado, let's jump into this review. So let's jump into a quick pros and cons list before I reach my final conclusion. So the first thing I want to say is I think that the main story quest of this game is very enjoyable. The story is not too hard to grasp. From a storyteller's perspective, without going into any spoilers, of course, it starts off small, and as you keep playing through the story, you uncover more things about, the incident that you first are investigating, and the more things you uncover even more things about those other things, so you end up exploring a spider web of all these different things in the universe. And I think that makes for an enjoyable experience. Also, in a similar vein, I also enjoy the side quests because they not only are fun stories in their own right that provide even more insight on the lore of the world, they also give pretty meaningful rewards. And I think that having good rewards for the quest that you do makes doing the quest feel that much better than if you just did a quest for nothing. I think that the game is simple at the start, which is good, because I think games in general should try to have a simple, low skill ceiling game to get into, so it's an accessible game for anyone to try, but also have a high skill ceiling so that people can have skill expression in the game. Now, I'm not going to go into the second part of that just right now, but I do think that the game being accessible to pretty much anyone that wants to play, because it's so simple, is a good thing. It means you don't need to invest a lot of time and effort to try and learn how to play the game. You just go into it, and it's easy to play. I also think the skill cape grind in this game, if you guys don't know, you get a skill cape at level 50, 200, and 500 in all skills. The skill cape grind is pretty reminiscent of the old days of RuneScape, where people were celebrating getting their capes. I think the skill capes in this game are a feat and an accomplishment to be proud of if you enjoy skilling. Now, I don't think the capes really look as iconic as the capes in old RuneScape, but it is pretty cool that as of right now, the only capes that you can get in the game are skill capes. So it's like a little extra badge of honor to have a cape on in general in Brighter Shores. And that's cool. Now, the last thing I want to mention in the pros is, I believe, the most important pro that this game has. And that is, the game is great value. I've spent 55 hours on this game so far on my Steam numbers, and I've only paid $6 for the 1 month subscription. And honestly, most games these days cost way more than $6, and you have way less content to do. And another factor that I think closely ties to the value of the game is there's no microtransactions. I don't want to go into a big debate and spiel about microtransactions, but to put it simply, a lot of people thought that MMOs went downhill once microtransactions went into the game, and you could just buy, whatever was prestigious in the game. You could buy gold, which would just end up buying whatever you need in the game. You could buy mounts, like in World of Warcraft. So they used to be prestigious, and now you could just buy them. You could buy fancy cosmetics, and which I don't personally think is a big deal, but I know some people do. And you can buy experience, like in Runescape, or in other MMOs where you just skip levels. A lot of people do not like microtransactions because they devalue their playtime in the game. And this game has none of that. So anything that you have in the game is earned through yourself. All the gold you have, you didn't buy bonds to sell to get money. It's gold that you earned in the game. And that is really refreshing in today's MMO landscape. Now let's talk about the cons. Firstly, I don't want to talk about any small minor nitpicks about clunkiness of the game. Anything with like the combat being hard to start, or like the UI is a bit weird because you can't right click multiple items. I'm gonna ignore all of that because I think that the Gowers are probably gonna fix that within like the next few weeks, because they've been really pumping out quality of life updates since the game has come out. What I want to focus on are the fundamental core functionalities of the game that I feel might conflict with many people thinking about playing this game. I think the biggest thing that will be an issue for most people is there is no content in this game after the main story quests and quests in general, besides skilling. If you look at RuneScape, even in the early days, if you didn't want to skill, you could focus on doing other things. You could focus on farming money to get expensive equipment and gear, or you can focus on your PvP skills by going into the wilderness and fighting each other. And even later on, you could play minigame like Clan Wars, or you could focus on getting some cool cosmetic stuff. Now, this became more prevalent, I would say, in RuneScape 3, but even in old RuneScape, there was still cosmetic stuff like the trimmed armors and all that like treasure trail stuff that you could work towards. This game basically has none of that. All you really can do is aim for skill capes, and that's it. I think that this game would be much more successful if there is more variety content in the game, especially multiplayer content. There is basically still nothing that you can do to interact with your fellow player. I know they say that PvP and trading is coming, but even my hopes are not high for that really drawing a crowd. There needs to be content like mini games, big boss fights, stuff like clans. The thing with MMOs are that in order for the game to actually be massive, you need to attract a large variety of players. If the game has only one end game, which is skilling, you're only going to attract skillers. So the game inherently is only going to target a niche audience. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of skilling. When I played RuneScape back in the day, I always skilled for the purpose of something else. I skilled to get better armor and gear so I could play Clan Wars or kill a boss. This game really doesn't have much reason to skill other than just get the skill capes. So for someone like me to continue to play this game beyond the quests, there needs to be something else other than just the skill capes. Now I want to focus on combat in particular. I think that combat needs a lot of work. So if you remember in the previous pro section, I talked about how the game is really easy to get into because it has a low skill floor. It also unfortunately has a very low skill ceiling, meaning there is not much skill expression to the player. You're basically just in combat and watching your character hopefully kill the target or the target kills you. There's not much things you can do. I even made a video talking about how you can optimize combat, but even if you apply all of those things, there's still not much stuff you can do in combat, especially because it seems like a lot of the later on enemies all used ranged attacks, so half of the points I made in my combat video don't even apply to those enemies. I also think that it's very unclear right now if stats or the elements that you use even matter. If they do, it seems too RNG based, because there's a lot of people, including myself, that attack an enemy that's like 10 levels lower than me, and I'm not really thinking too much about it, but that enemy, a lot of the times, comes very close to killing me. And in other games, if I'm massively higher level than something else, especially just an NPC, I should just be one-shotting it, not almost dying to it. And the elemental system really doesn't do anything in the game right now other than making it annoying because some enemies are immune to certain elements, so you just can't use that weapon. So the system needs to have more to it, something like maybe the Pokemon system, where if you're fighting something that's weak to your element, then you do double the damage or something, so that the immunity is not just a feels bad, and there's more elements to it than just that. I also want to mention that all of the immersion breaking features that I mentioned in my previous review, the day one review video, if you guys haven't checked it out, please take a look at it if you want some more context. But everything that I felt back then after day one that inherently broke the immersion of the world in Brighter Shores still applies. Nothing, after I finished the game, nothing has really made me feel like I'm still in the world. To put it plainly. It still feels like I'm playing a video game and I'm not a character with my own agency in this brand new world. Final thing I want to talk about is I believe the game path is too linear. This kind of harpens back to the first point I made in the con section where there needs to be more content other than skilling. When you start playing this game, you have to do the main story quest. There's no option to do anything else. You can't just go off, start skilling. You have to do the quest. In order to move on from episode 1 to 2, you have to do the quest to move to the next area. This feels restrictive compared to a game like RuneScape, where you literally just spawn in Lumbridge and you can do anything that you want. You don't have the quest. You can start fishing, or you can start roaming around, head into the wilderness, and have a guy attack you and be really scared. You can start trying to merch people. You know, there's level 3 accounts that have billions of gold. You're not locked into one path in the game like you are in Brighter Shores. I think for people that are looking for an open and free experience like that are going to be turned away from how linear Brighter Shores is, and them essentially telling you this is how you play the game. Don't play it how you want to play it. I'm telling you how to play the game. So, in conclusion, is Brighter Shores worth playing? I think the main story of the quest is worth playing. I've played it for 55 hours, and I enjoyed it. It was fun to explore the story, fun to explore the world, and just generally, it really brought back a lot of elements of early RuneScape that I really missed. Now, will I be playing the game after I'm done with all the quests? Right now, no. I'm not interested in skilling, so I don't have a purpose, in my opinion, to continue playing this game. I'm just going to be waiting until they release the next episode or have a big update on more content in the game. So should you play this game? If you enjoyed RuneScape, you should play through the main story of this game. Now, if you enjoy skilling in RuneScape, keep skilling, keep grinding. There is a lot of grind in this game, and it's enjoyable to do if you enjoy skilling. If not, then you can just wait until the next episode and move on to the next area. The way this game is built is you don't actually have to compete with people that have like 400 skills in other earlier episode stats when a new area comes out, because everyone is level 1 in that area. So you're not actually behind. So this game does benefit a more episodic kind of play. But all in all, I have to commend the Gowers for creating this brand new MMO. I think it is a breath of fresh air after all the BS that we've gone through in RuneScape, especially RuneScape 3. And I give them massive respect for how much work they've been putting in post-launch, giving updates every single day, even through weekends. And I'm hopeful that this game can still reach heights that I am not even aware of. And I think that's really exciting. So yeah, let me know in the comments if you guys agree or disagree. And thanks everyone for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.